Hello artists! In this video we will be reviewing some paper weaving techniques, tips, and tricks. So grab your paper loom and your paper strips. Remember, we weave in an over, under, over, under pattern. Let's go! Okay, so grab your first paper strip and we're going to start by going over the loom. So over and under the next part of my loom. Over and under. Over, under. Over, under. And then I like to push it all the way to the side. Now, something important to remember is the next paper strip has to be the opposite of the first one. So if the first one we started by going on top of our loom, this one we're going to start under our loom. So under, and now it's over the next one. Under, over, under, over, under, over. Now notice I use pretty much all of my fingers to get my strips all the way woven through my paper loom. So if you have to do the same thing, that's totally okay. Remember, we always weave in an over-under pattern. So if my first paper strip started on top of my loom, my second paper strip started under my loom, so my third paper strip should start by going over my loom again to continue the pattern. And now my fourth strip should do the same thing. So I should go under my loom since my last paper strip started on top of my loom. So always weaving over, under, over, under. And if you make a mistake, just pull out that paper strip. Totally okay. Speaking of some mistakes, these are common mistakes that I see my students doing all the time. The first one is forgetting about our over-under pattern. So if I take my yellow strip right now and I start by going under my loom, just like my blue strip next to it, I'm going to run into a problem in a little bit. Notice how it looks like my yellow strip is right next to my blue strip. A way to check for this is to push your strips all the way to one side, and if the strips kind of collapse on each other, that's no good. So instead, we always need to make sure that if the strip that we last wove started by going under our loom, then this one should be the opposite of that. So I should start by going on top of my loom, always weaving over under. Another mistake that my students make all of the time is accidentally skipping a spot on the loom. So here I'm starting by weaving in the correct way. My last piece was on top of my loom and now I'm starting under, but check this out. I accidentally skipped a spot in my loom. So the checkerboard pattern looks a little bit strange. There's like a double blue. A good way to check this is to make sure that your checkerboard pattern looks correct on the very, very top of your loom. If you have a double red or a double yellow or a double blue, that means that we need to go back and fix something. So here we have to make sure that you're always getting to every single spot on our loom. A final mistake that I see my students making all of the time is leaving huge gaps in between the paper strips on the loom. So a student might think that they are done just because their paper strips are all the way across the loom, but that's not the case. Always push your paper strips all the way to one side. When your weaving looks like a checkerboard pattern, that means that you've done it correctly. So if you have large gaps in between your paper strips, you might want to go back and push those little pieces of paper closer together on one side. So artists, as long as you follow these tips and tricks, I know that you will succeed in paper weaving. Have fun!